Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today I'm speaking with Michael Connett again. He's, of course, an attorney who has been fighting the good fight in the fluoride world for a number of years. You guys can go back and see the archives where I talked with Michael previously about the federal lawsuit against the EPA, which was victorious. Congratulations, Michael, and thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Derrick. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so let's just pick up there. I mean, that last everybody heard us speak. We were discussing the end of the hearings and the trial and waiting for the decision. Since we last spoke, now the decision has come out, and of course, the judge ruled in favor of your side and said that the EPA must act. There was no specifications about what the EPA should do, but he did order the EPA to act in some way. And then since that time, right before Biden left the White House now in just the recent days, we've had the Biden administration announce that they were going to appeal that decision. And now Trump's in office, of course. Could you just update everybody on, how the ruling went and what you expect now that there is that appeal out there?
Well, yeah, first off, you're right. The court did not tell EPA what it needed to do to address the risk posed by fluoridation. But I should note that the court does not have authority under the law to tell EPA what to do. The court's authority and jurisdiction here is to assess whether water fluoridation presents an unreasonable risk to human health. The court did the assessment and concluded that, yes, there is a risk. And at that point, the only thing the court can do is order EPA to initiate rulemaking proceedings to address that risk. And that's what the court did. Now, the EPA had a decision to make, which is, are we going to appeal the court's decision? And Friday of last week, so January 17th, the Biden administration, and I guess its last day in office, announced that the EPA will be appealing the court's decision. And, that was disappointing to hear, not entirely surprising. But the key thing here, Derrick, is that decision by the outgoing administration has no effect on the incoming administration. It has no binding effect. So at any point, in the days, weeks, months ahead, the Trump administration, if it so wanted, could announce, we are not going to appeal this decision. We are going to withdraw our appeal, and the case would be complete. So we certainly hope that the EPA will take that course of action and announce that it is withdrawing its appeal. And instead of appealing the court's decision, promptly begin the rulemaking proceeding to determine what to do to address the risk that the court identified with respect to water fluoridation and reduced IQ.
And so on that front, as far as the Trump administration goes, assuming that obviously the best case scenario, as you just said, is that the Trump administration will take that appeal out, and the EPA has to continue the process that the judge outlined, that they must act in some way. Do you have any indications, or whatever you feel like you want to share publicly, that the Trump administration is taking the fluoride problem seriously? Obviously, we know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has been nominated for the head of HHS, has spoken about this issue. We're still waiting to see if he's going to be confirmed. But let's say that perhaps that doesn't happen if RFK is not put into the cabinet. Do you think this would be an issue that the Trump administration, or do you have any indication that they will still take it seriously?
I have no more information than anyone else. So I don't have any insights or intelligence with respect to the Trump administration's thinking. The only thing I know is what RFK has stated, which is if confirmed as Secretary of HHS, he intends to take real and meaningful action on fluoride. And I have no reason to doubt that that's what he will do. I haven't heard anyone else from the Trump administration talk about fluoride. So I have no idea what anyone else's thinking is on this issue other than RFK. So I think if we want to see real action taken on fluoride, my presumption, and again, I have no, intel on this, but my presumption is if we want to see real action on fluoride, RFK needs to be part of the cabinet.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So there also has been another study since we last spoke, a U.S. government study, a meta-analysis that came out and has drawn similar conclusions to what the court found, as well as what the National Toxicology Program found. Could you speak to the meta-analysis and if there's any new information or anything particular you think that the public should know about?
Yeah, so January 6th, the NTP, the National Toxicology Program, which is part of the Health and Human Services, released a meta-analysis on fluoride and IQ. It's the most comprehensive quantitative analysis of fluoride and IQ that's ever been conducted. They looked at many studies, I think around 74 studies in total of human populations. And NTP determined that there is an inverse association between fluoride and IQ, meaning as the fluoride level goes up, IQ scores tend to go down. And the NTP determined that there is a dose-response relationship between fluoride and IQ, which is, as you know, important information when determining whether the association between a chemical and an adverse outcome, in this case IQ loss, is a real one, is a causal one. If you see a dose-response relationship, that gives you confidence that the chemical here, fluoride, is the cause of the effect that you're seeing, reduced IQ. So I think the NTP's meta-analysis is important, very significant in terms of the scientific literature. And the other, I think, notable finding of the study is that when they restricted the studies to only those studies that looked at humans with urinary fluoride levels below 1.5 parts per million, they still observed this inverse association between fluoride and IQ, which further suggests that fluoride's ability to lower IQ is not limited to, very high doses, doses that we don't see here in the United States or in fluoride areas, but instead, this effect is something that is seen at the doses that many people receive in fluoridated communities in the United States, which is another reason why we need to be taking this new data and these studies seriously, because potentially there are millions of people in the US being affected by this.
I noticed with the reporting, which is, it seems to be typical with any new study from fluoride, that the mainstream reporting, I'll mention the New York Times particularly and others that did acknowledge this study, this meta-analysis, they did not get into the nuance that you just described there. They like to add these at twice the recommended limit or at amounts beyond the US, and to, in my view, really try to downplay the results and to try to get a US based audience to think, okay, that may be true, but it doesn't apply to me. And then also at the same time, the meta-analysis itself was complemented by two different perspectives. They felt the need to have a pro-fluoride view, and then of course Dr. Bruce Lamphere representing the counter argument there. Could you speak to that? I mean, do you think that's just par for the course where we're at now? We've seen this with things like COVID-19, where there's the mainstream experts, so to speak, and then there's sort of counter experts to that. How are the average American supposed to make sense of this when they're hearing so many conflicting viewpoints?
Good question. I do think that if you look at the media coverage over the past few months, the standard refrain is that the levels associated with reduced IQ are far higher than the levels that we receive from fluoridated water, or the exposures from fluoridated water. And that's been a standard refrain. And so it wouldn't surprise me that you have many people reading these stories who think, okay, this isn't relevant to me. It's not relevant to my community. And I think that's a disservice for the media to convey that impression for a number of reasons. And first, even if, Derrick, even if there was not yet evidence of harm below 1.5 parts per million, which is 2 times higher than the level we add to water, even if that was the case, a margin of 2 is very small when we're talking about environmental toxicants. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, when it's regulating chemicals, it wants margins between the hazard level and the exposure level of at least 10. Okay. If you get a margin lower than that, that's a real danger zone. That is a precarious margin, a precarious buffer between the hazard level and the exposure level. So when the media refers to the 1.5 parts per million as a high level, it's really it really ignores the reality of risk assessment and how our country, for every other chemical, assesses risk. A margin of 2 for any other chemical would be precariously small and dangerous. But when it comes to fluoride, it suddenly becomes huge. And so, yeah, I think we need to have some consistency when we look across multiple chemicals in how we define risk, how we define what's a high exposure or a low exposure. Because right now what we have is we have a double standard. Fluoride is treated in a very different way than all these other toxicants that the EPA is regulating.
That's a great point. It's one I've tried to make that became clear to me after attending the trial last year, that, as you said, these same standards have been applied to mercury, to lead, to other toxicants, but with fluoride, there's sort of resistance to doing so. So you've also, let's talk about the latest news, is that now that the fluoride, the first lawsuit is sort of towards the end, I know there's still proceedings going on with the potential appeal, but now you are stepping forward with another lawsuit. I'll show here on screen for those who are watching a report from Bloomberg Law. Crest Colgate sued over kids' products that contain fluoride. Tell us about this. This one's a bit different from what I read. This is a class action lawsuit, right? So tell us about the drive behind this, now that you're starting to focus on the companies who've been involved in promoting fluoride.
Right. So I should say, for starters, when I'm thinking about a rational way of using fluoride for people who want to use fluoride, many people don't, but for people who do, fluoride toothpaste, in my view, is the most rational way of using this chemical for dental health purposes, because you're applying it topically to the teeth, which is the mechanism that is most effective for fluoride. Fluoride's beneficial effects come from topical contact with the teeth, not from swallowing it. So there's a logic to fluoride toothpaste that's not there with water fluoridation, right? And fluoride toothpaste has the benefit of giving everybody the choice. As a consumer, you can decide to purchase fluoride toothpaste or not. It's up to you. It's up to your family. And that's a good thing. That's what we should be doing with fluoride, allowing individual choice rather than forcing this upon everybody through their drinking water. So I wanted to say that up front. These cases that I've just filed, which are 6 class action lawsuits, do not challenge whether fluoride toothpaste or fluoride mouth rinse should be available to those consumers who want it. What we are challenging, though, is the false and misleading and very deceptive marketing that these companies, including Procter & Gamble, Colgate, and other large manufacturers are using to create a false impression about the safety of these fluoride products for young children. And we're talking toddlers. These are, Derrick, today you have these kids branded fluoride toothpaste products and fluoride mouth rinse products that are being very intentionally marketed to very young kids, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. Okay. And these are products that have adult strength fluoride concentrations. They don't have lower fluoride levels to be safer for kids. No, they are the same level that you as an adult would use if you were using fluoride toothpaste or fluoride mouth rinse. But the way they package these products, they make the consumer believe that they are specially formulated to be safe for your little kid. And I'll show you one of the more egregious, and I think it's probably the most egregious product that is currently sold in a lot of Walmart stores. This is called Firefly. It's made by a company called Perigo, okay? This is a fluoride mouth rinse. Now, according to the FDA, this product is too dangerous for a child under the age of 6 to use because, first off, it has a very high concentration of fluoride. And we know that young children, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, have a very poorly developed swallowing reflex, which means whatever they put in their mouth, they typically swallow or swallow a lot of, right? So the FDA has determined that this product is contraindicated for children under the age of 6. But look here at this product. Look here at this product. This is a product that is very much designed to appeal to 2 and 3 and 4-year-old kids. Paw Patrol, for instance. Paw Patrol, as I have a 3.5-year-old, okay? He loves Paw Patrol. So when he sees Paw Patrol on a product, he's immediately drawn to it. He immediately wants it, okay? So this is a company that is now marketing a product to a population for which it is contraindicated because it's too dangerous for a 3-year-old to use, right? So this is false and misleading advertising, false and misleading marketing. And that's a violation of the law. According to the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, as well as almost every state consumer protection statutes, you can't use marketing or labeling that's false and misleading. And here, that's what they're doing. They're presenting this as basically candy. This is a bubblegum flavored rinse. And it looks like a toy, right? It has a kind of a bubblehead type thing. And so that's what these companies are doing. They're packaging these products with cartoons, bright colors, candy flavors, fruit flavors, in a way that makes it look so harmless. Like, look at this product right here. This is Colgate's mouth rinse with a unicorn, rainbow colored hair. I mean, can you get a more harmless looking product than this? Purple liquid, bubblegum flavored rinse. This product doesn't look like something that is contraindicated for your child because it's too dangerous for your kid to use. It looks like a flavored fruit drink. I'll show you another example. Oh yeah. This is Act mouth rinse, pineapple punch. They literally are calling this and labeling it like it's a fruit drink for your kid. It doesn't even have a child resistant cap. So your kid can just pour this at will and there's no limit to how much they can use. But pineapple punch, it looks just like Hawaiian punch. What do you do with a drink? You drink it. But this is a product that, according to the FDA, you do not want to drink. You're not supposed to drink this. You're not supposed to ingest it. It's dangerous when you ingest it. And yet they are packaging it like it's a flavored fruit drink for little kids. One last note on this, Derrick. And I probably should talk to you about the toothpaste too, but one last note on the mouth rinse. Okay. So under the law, the FDA requires companies to prominently display on the front label an instruction to caregivers to say, important, please read the directions for proper use. The reason the FDA wants these companies to do that is because the FDA is concerned that parents won't appreciate the added risk of having fluoride in your mouth rinse, okay? So FDA requires companies to have that disclosure on the front label and to have it prominently displayed. That's a direct quote, prominently displayed. Now, here on this label, see if you can see where it says important, read directions for proper use. And I'll point it out where it is. It's right down here, that text at the very bottom. It is the absolute opposite of prominently displayed. It's the smallest text on the label, and it is so small that honestly, I have good eyesight, I can't even read it. I cannot even read that, even when I squint my eyes to read it. And under the law, it's supposed to be prominently displayed. And it's not just mouth rinses that we filed class action lawsuits on. It's also toothpaste. This one is a Colgate Watermelon Burst toothpaste. As you can see here, they're presenting this. You see the crayon color. This is clearly marketed to very young kids. Watermelon. It's like a candy style packaging, very much signaling to parents that this is completely harmless. It's like a food-like, candy-like product. No need to worry about your child swallowing this stuff. And when you open this cap, there is this candy smell that emanates into the air that's very like sweet. It's the kind of fragrance that is very enticing to a young child. This tastes and smells absolutely identical to candy. There's no difference in taste and smell to candy. And what do kids do when they have candy in their mouth? They tend to swallow it. So that's what we've brought these class action lawsuits to challenge the misleading ways that they are marketing these products to caregivers of young children.
Wow. And, when the one you were showing a moment ago, Michael, with the very tiny, warning at the bottom, I noticed there's an ADA approved label on it, though, of course, the American Dental Association being longtime proponents of fluoride. So one question that comes to mind, and please forgive my ignorance, but when you say class action lawsuit, I know you're representing multiple plaintiffs. Is this the sort of thing that there will be more plaintiffs to join at some point, or how does that work?
Yeah, there could be additional plaintiffs for our cases. The way it typically works, though, is you have your named plaintiffs. They're called the class representatives. And if you are successful and you win at trial, right, then the court establishes a procedure by which everybody around the country, or wherever the class is, however the class is defined, we have some nationwide classes, we have some specific state classes, but anyone who lives in the states for which the case applies, who purchase these products for their kids, can file a claim and would be reimbursed for the money they spent on these products, with the idea being that if you hadn't been deceived into thinking that these products are perfectly safe for your kids to swallow, then you wouldn't have purchased the product, and so you lost money. The deception caused you economic loss. So that's the idea. And so anyone who purchased these products could get a recovery through it's a claim process.
Gotcha. Okay. So thanks for that clarification. Well, I'm really interested and excited for this lawsuit as well, because I remember in our last interview, I asked you, I was like, is there going to be a potential for class action lawsuits? And here we are. I'm glad to see the first 6 you had up your sleeve, and I'm looking forward to following along. And if they do make it to the courtroom, I will be there in person to report on the proceedings.
And I should say, this is something that's been a long time in the making. I mean, these companies have misled consumers for so long. and have gotten away with it. It's something that has been something I've wanted to work on for a long time, because this is a major source of exposure for young kids, 2 and 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. Fluoride toothpaste like this Colgate Watermelon Burst are major sources of exposure. And one of the things that I think your viewers will be interested in, and I think people should know, is that the current recommendation by even the American Dental Association, which, as you know, Derrick, is one of the largest promoters, if not the largest promoter of fluoride anywhere in the world. Even the ADA now recognizes that children under the age of 3 should use no more than a, quote, smear of fluoride toothpaste on the brush, which the ADA defines as basically a rice grain amount of paste, a rice grain. That's because of the dangers of swallowing fluoride at a young age. So, but very few parents know that. Very few parents realize that you should only use a smear, a rice grain amount of paste on the toothbrush for kids under 3. And these companies certainly don't do anything to tell you that when they're selling you these products, because they want you, and there's marketing efforts that have been used for decades to convey the impression to consumers that when you have a little kid, you can just put the whole, you can, use a full strip of paste on the brush, and that's perfectly appropriate, no problem. So you have parents that are allowing their kids to put far more toothpaste on the brush than even the American Dental Association thinks is appropriate. So we have millions and millions of kids right now in the United States who are using far more fluoride in toothpaste and, for some, in mouth rinse than is safe. And, the health consequences of this, while they haven't been studied with respect to toothpaste and mouth rinse, I think there's ample reason to be concerned that there are a lot of children being harmed through this false and misleading advertising.
It's a really important point, Michael. I appreciate you mentioning that. One other question before I let you go. You mentioned at the beginning, as far as, which I agree with, that when it comes to fluoridation, toothpaste is at least an individual can make that personal choice, right? We're not mass medicating the population through the water. I tend to feel the same. I don't use fluoride toothpaste, but if somebody wants it, they have that option. It's available to them. But I'm curious your thoughts on the effectiveness of that, because I know we've had different studies and reviews come out over the years. I know we had one just last year with the NHS in the UK that found, I think their term was negligible effects on caries or cavities for people who are using fluoridated toothpaste. What have you found in your research? Is it actually even effective the way the ADA claims it to be, or is that also just another false claim in the fluoride discussion?
Well, I think that you have, unlike with water fluoridation, okay, where there is compelling evidence to indicate that water fluoridation has at best negligible, clinically insignificant benefits, okay? With fluoride toothpaste, you have a much stronger body of evidence to indicate that there are benefits topically in terms of cavity reduction. And so, I could not sit here. I mean, I haven't, attempted to extensively analyze that literature to look for methodological flaws and limitations. So I can't say that they don't exist in those studies, right? But, just sort of at a first glance at the literature, it's much more compelling for toothpaste than it is for fluoride in drinking water. Okay. And there's mechanistic studies, where you can, that gives you some confidence that fluoride on the surface of the teeth can help with the remineralization process. So there's mechanistic explanations that are plausible that I don't dispute, right? But again, as you noted, this should be an individual choice. I may not use fluoride toothpaste for myself, but I think that everyone should have that right, that choice to use it or not, which is one of the reasons why water fluoridation is such a problematic policy, because it takes away that choice. And, but I think one thing I would say about fluoride toothpaste is it is not without risk, especially for young children. For young children, fluoride toothpaste does present risk, and that risk is magnified when you present it as if it is candy, when you present it as if it is, sweet watermelon fruit flavored candy. And so, I do think we need to be more responsible. I think the fluoride toothpaste manufacturers need to be more responsible in how they are marketing this to the most vulnerable, which is young children. And that's what we seek to accomplish through these class action lawsuits, is to hold these companies accountable for misleading parents. And in doing so, I hope to see labeling and marketing that is not deceptive, so that every consumer can make a truly informed decision. Because I would close with this, Derrick. Informed consent is a unifying thread in my work on fluoride, both with respect to water fluoridation, where clearly people do not have consent because it's just being added to their water, whether they want it or not, right? And then with fluoride toothpaste, you may consent to buying the product because you're buying it, right? But you don't truly have informed consent if the basis of the bargain, if the basis for you purchasing this for your 2-year-old is a falsity, if you've been misled into buying it for your kid. And that's, so it's like to have informed consent, you need to be truly informed, not misinformed. And that's what this litigation seeks to accomplish, is to make sure that consumers, if they are purchasing this product, are purchasing it in an informed way.
Perfectly said, Michael. I definitely think that that's really the key point there. That, and especially for me, my philosophical background, not trying to take away people's freedom to choose what they want, but we hope that in the marketplace, so to speak, that they have adequate information to make those informed choices, as you're talking about. Well, thank you for joining me today. I'll put the links. You recently started a Twitter account, so I'll put the link to that if people want to follow you there, because I know you've been posting updates there, and that's where I first learned about this new lawsuit. And of course, links to fluoridealert.org. I hope everybody will follow along. This is really important work that you're doing, Michael, and I'm happy to support however I can, and will continue to follow along. So thank you for joining me today. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in. Please do follow Michael on Twitter. Follow the fluoridealert.org to keep up with all the lawsuits and the developments as they happen. Until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.